So this week we're talking about the topic of self and no self in Buddhism. And a little bit to review these first 3 days, on Monday I talked about the positive understanding of self of people that the early tradition has. And I didn't mention it, but there are some very clear words that correspond to the English word individual or person. That's different than the word for self. And even though there's positive uses of the word self, there's also no questioning and no negating in any kind of way the idea of an individual, the idea of a person, and that the idea of a person is important, and it's to be fulfilled, it's to become abundant, it's to become free, that person. And the capacity for that is really at the heart of Buddhism, the capacity for an individual to become really free. But one of the things that becomes free of is free of self. And that involves a number of things, but it involves a lot the ways in which we're selfing, the contribution we make in our mind to construct identity, construct ideas of self, and construct selfishness, construct conceit and arrogance. These are activities of the mind. And that was Tuesday. And then yesterday, part of this construction is really projections, that we project self onto things, identity onto things. So we have a thought, and we project onto it, that's my thought. If it was a wonderful thought, we pat ourselves on the back. If it was a horrible thought, we feel bad about ourselves, feel embarrassed. Another option is just to have a thought and not tie it to any kind of identity or definition of oneself. It's just a thought. And it can seem second nature or inherent that we should always measure ourselves by whatever thought we have, but that's a form of selfing, a projection, a construct, that idea that every thought somehow has some bearing back on, reflects back on the idea of who we are. And so as we go deeper into Buddhist meditation, the activities of the mind get quieter and quieter. And so we're no longer actively constructing these projections or operating through them. And so, for example, to use a variation of an example yesterday, I'm sitting here at the IMC meditation hall, and we have a lot of cushions, meditation cushions for people to sit on. And someone could come here when we're open and pull down one of IMC's cushions from the shelf, place it on the floor, sit down, then get up and go to the bathroom. And if they come back and someone's sitting on their zafu, it wasn't their zafu before they came here, but because they claimed it for the hour, now it becomes theirs. And that's a projection, that's an idea. That it's a reasonable one. I mean, we kind of go along with little bit ideas of possession, but still, it's a construct, it's an idea. So they come back and see that someone is sitting on it, and they associate that with all kinds of other slights they've had, and insults they've had, and harm that's been caused to them, where people weren't caring for them or ignored them, and so there's a lot of anger that arises, and the anger is about me, myself, and mine. Another option is a person has sat on it for a little while and gotten very, very quiet and calm, go to the bathroom, come back, and someone is sitting on that cushion. But because the mind is so calm and peaceful, the person can watch thoughts of, oh, that's my cushion. That thought arises and maybe feels a little bit the stress of that thought. And because it's so calm, the person says, wait a minute. Do I really need to go down that road? Do I really need to pick up and be involved with that thought, that is my cushion? It's not really mine, it belongs to IMC. And there's more cushions on the shelf, there's more spaces to sit. And I don't really need to get into the stress, into the activation of all this series of things, cascade of thoughts that can happen once I say it's my cushion and the person's sitting on my cushion. And so there's a freedom there to decide on what to do. And said, okay, it's not my cushion, it's fine. I'll let it go and let it be. And so this idea of seeing things as not this is not me, this is not personal, it becomes more and more clear, more and more an aspect of meditation practice as we go quieter and quieter and quieter. And so if you were sitting here, and sometimes all this train whistles and train sounds we hear nearby, and I'm sitting here, and I hear the sound, and I can just let it be sound. Or I can make it very personal. The sound is coming into the IMC meditation hall, and the sound is being maybe projected onto YouTube, and all these people are hearing it, and they're disturbing their meditation, and if it disturbs their meditation, then I'm not being a good teacher, and in order to make a good impression, I have to figure out how to get more soundproof windows. And now I've made it very personal, the story, as opposed to it's impersonal. Just, okay, I don't have to pick it up and make a self out of this experience. I can be responsible for it a little bit if I need to take care of something, but the construct and projections of self not only is stressful in some small ways by itself, but it can very quickly escalate into all these associations, and it's a magnet for our history, our memories, our past experiences, our values, our conceits, and it can become very big very quickly. So in meditation, to sit and more appreciate that what happens as we're sitting moment by moment, a lot of it is impersonal. This thing is not myself. So if you're sitting there and a breeze comes through, the breeze goes over maybe the top of the hand, and okay, that's not self, it's just a breeze, just sensations. If I get involved in the liking and disliking of it, that kind of begins creating more energy around the breeze. And I might believe that that's who I am, the liking and disliking, and or the pleasure and the discomfort of the breeze. But the pleasantness or unpleasant of the breeze is also just nature, pleasant and unpleasant. Turns out that the first kind of arising, appearing of liking and disliking also has a quality that's impersonal. It's just a system working, and it can kind of arise off, not offline is right the word, but it just appears without a plan, without an intention for it to be. It's just kind of almost spontaneous. The system creates liking and disliking. And for a moment before latching onto it, it's just impersonal. Oh, look, there's the experience of liking happening, and it's possible to see that experience of liking without any attribution of this is me, myself and mine, without any projection of self onto it, that activity of making it or associating with self. And for people who don't meditate and get quiet, it might seem not understandable what I'm saying, because the self and selfing and taking it personal is like that's who we are, of course. If it's just who we are, then it's like, how can I be different? And it's all part of it all. But as we get quieter in meditation and mindfulness gets stronger, we're beginning to deconstruct all the constructions we have, all the ways in which we latch onto things. So, for example, if I have preferences, liking and disliking of the simple breeze across my hand, I could very little bit start coalesce around that. Little bit start getting involved and believing it and holding on to it and picking it up, and then thinking, well, I like this, how can I have more of it? And that coalescing around it can also be a little bit physical, a little more energy there, a little more pressure, coalescing tension. And that gives a sense of, oh, there's a location here. So I am the place of my location. There's a me here because of this sense of pressure or tension that's giving a location to that kind of engagement with liking and disliking. And then there's thoughts about it. Well, I like it, so now let's plan to have breeze more often. And what would it take to get a fan here at IMC? And what speed fan? And we have to get a quiet fan. And the mind goes off. And those also can be seen as impersonal. And it's really freeing to start doing that. Or many people, They think, therefore they are. And the energy around thinking is strong enough that again reinforces the idea of there's some coalesced energy, coalesced pressure, tension, sensations. Oh, this is who I am. I am my thinking. And then this idea of I am. That itself is a construct. That's also, believe it or not, an impersonal phenomena. That it's just a thought that arises. But by the time any of this stuff arises, there's this whole kind of construct and coalescence of ideas and associations and energies and tensions. And it all seems like a big self. This is, of course I'm here. This is me. But as we meditate, there's this deconstruction process. And we start seeing this marvelous thing that this is not me. This is not me. And the Buddha's teachings on not self, anatta, is not a metaphysical teaching, but rather it's a teaching about always about something particular. And this is very important to understand. It's always about something in particular, a particular sensation, a particular perception. And it's the recognition that that particular perception is, this is not me. This is not self. So this not self is a characteristic. It's called a characteristic, lakkhana, characteristic, that of things. It's always some characteristic of particular things. It's not like a generalized statement, there is no self. So for example, if you cut your fingernail and have the fingernail clipping on the table in front of you, it might be relatively easy to say, that is not myself. There's no self there. That's not who I am. That was my finger clipping. But if you look at your fingernail on your finger, some people might make a big self. A lot of personal associations, a lot of self, a lot of concerns about how it seems. It's nice, it's not nice. I have to do something with it to be nice. And there's a beginning of creating of a self. Or it's possible to just look at fingernail. This is just nature growing fingernails, and it's just impersonal. This is not self in itself. So this beginning to kind of see in the particulars of experience, moment by moment, particulars of perception, how many things are not self. Not self, not self. Not because you have to believe it, like it's a philosophy, you have to believe there's no self, but it becomes a little bit like looking at the finger clipping on the table. Oh, that's not me anymore. That's impersonal now. It's like outside of me. And we can see actually so much of our experience is that way, like finger clippings. Not to make it diminish its value or its importance in life itself or in nature, but it begins loosening up the grip of self, loosening up the holding on of self, the associations, the constructs, the projections we have. And it's phenomenally relaxing, phenomenally freeing to do that. It's phenomenally inspiring sometimes to feel like we're in this natural world of things just arising and passing, and it's nature doing its things. And to start feeling the emptiness, the lack of self that's attributed, projected, made up in relationship to just breathing and being animate, being alive, and feeling and sensing and experiencing the world. That absence of the projections and the selfing and the weight and the planning and the associations and the judgments and the comparisons and all the stuff we do around the self is such a relief. And it provides this wonderful experience of freedom. And that to know that freedom teaches us about a potential, about how free we can be, how open we can be, how relaxed we can be. And then when we start getting involved in the world of projections and the selfing and taking things personally again, we can do it with a very light touch. We can do it without attachment, but rather instead we do it as it's needed, as it's appropriate. And when it's not appropriate and not needed, we're happy to put it down. And so we wear self as lightly as we'd wear a very light shirt. That may be, maybe a very light coat that we take off and on as we need. So That's kind of the heart of the Buddha's teachings of not self. I hope that you have some taste of not living in a world of the constructed self, projected self. Thank you.